Hi, Bother Brigade. Here's what's bothering me today. There have been several news stories and developments, if you want to call it that, that have happened today with regards to Ukraine and the global economy. And so I kind of want to talk about that real quick and what this potentially means for the Russo-Ukraine war moving forward, and also like a potential global economic shift. So with all the focus on Ukraine and everything right now, Zelensky pretty much admitted that there's no way for Ukraine to join NATO despite the open door policy of NATO. He's not saying that that doesn't mean that there are different avenues for Ukraine to pursue in terms of defense and treaties and cooperation with the West and with NATO. And he's not wrong. I kind of doubt that this would be the case in the future. But potentially there's a mutual defense treaty. So NATO is basically like Canada, America, and then the vast majority of Europe and like Turkey. And that's NATO. And it's, been expanded since the 90s. Again, we've talked about that before, but that's kind of NATO. But America has mutual defense treaties with a bunch of other nations. South Korea, Japan, and I'm pretty sure also Australia, to name but a few more. So it's not exactly like a potential future defense treaty or formal alliance and partnership with Ukraine is entirely out of the cards. However, a mutual defense treaty would probably be off the table for Russia, because for Russia, if they find out, oh, America has a mutual defense treaty with Ukraine, which means if I ever try and invade or take over Ukraine again, and America says, no, you can't do that, that's going to be kind of a problem for me, and America wins that strategic foothold, and I absolutely cannot allow that for my own geostrategic interests, right? So let's talk a little bit then about Russia and what that could mean with Zelensky's recent admission that, there's no way for Ukraine to properly join NATO, and even then NATO might not accept them. And also there's the whole, no-fly zone. Several people, including a lot of Ukrainians, have been pushing for this, but a lot of people in NATO, as I said a few days ago at this point, said, no, we're not doing that. And whether they admit it or not, it's because that runs the risk of World War III with Russia, and no one wants to end the world just yet. Capitalists still want to make money after all, right? But... and we'll kind of sort of tangentially touch on this in a future video. But it seems like a lot of people are trying to now send more troops to Kyiv, because I guess the Russians are slowly but surely making more progress. But in any case, what this might mean in terms of Zelensky saying, oh, there's no path for NATO, Russia might take that as a sign of being able to potentially save face in this war. So they may say, okay, you know what? We'll stop if you, dear Volodymyr Zelensky, say, yeah, we're not going to join NATO, and we maintain official neutrality, and we also will demilitarize everything east of the Dnieper, or something, right? The Russians may have a revised list of demands based on this information that was recently admitted to today, right? So that's, not going to say that, that's the hope for peace, but just putting it out there that this does open up some new avenues for potential discussion and peace talks. Will that be successful? Will it be even feasible? That's a completely different question, but there is at least a potential opportunity here. And related to Russia, there were some interesting developments. Russia has recently asked China for help. Not military aid, because China doesn't want that, whole chestnut. But they are asking for food and supplies and things like that. And given that China is ostensibly an ally of Russia, they may say yes. But I know China is not very invested in what's happening in Europe. With that said, other related news with regards to China is Saudi Arabia, which again, as some people were saying, they weren't even returning the White House's phone calls recently. Turns out they recently said that they may be willing to sell oil by trading in Chinese yuan, which is the currency of China, which, while not entirely abandoning the dollar, shows an openness to using something other than the dollar, which is huge. So that's an interesting development. What's also been happening is that India has been buying Russian oil. A lot of people don't realize this, but India has actually been a pretty steadfast Russian ally for a long time. During the Cold War, America tried to get in cozy with Pakistan, and that was for a variety of different reasons, partially to do with Pakistan's potential ties with China, but that was sort of a fear, especially with India being nominally socialist, like in terms of their constitution at the time. We've talked about this before in like a video way back. But what this means is that with, China and America betting on Pakistan, India needed some other kind of major geopolitical ally. And the only one available that wouldn't have been, terrible, like say the British or something, was Russia. And so India has bought like Russian military equipment. They've had trade deals with the Russians, official state visits numerous times, help with like their nuclear program. Canada also helped with India's nuclear program. And of course, supplying energy. So India has now, as a sign of, the Russians have been there for us in the past, we should be there for them now too. They're buying Russian oil. And so these sanctions and the war in Ukraine and everything has basically resulted in like nearly half of the world's population in some way supporting Russia. And if not openly supporting Russia, at least not working with the West. This is a soft kind of rejection of US hegemony. So with all that in mind, it's worth noting that how all of this ties to the conflict going on in Ukraine and how it's resulted in, some challenges, or not challenges necessarily, but like soft rejections of complete US dominance and hegemony over the global economic system, especially by up and coming powers like China and India, and of course like the world's largest oil supplier, Saudi Arabia, which ostensibly is, a major key US factor in terms of their foreign policy and being an ally. That should be much bigger news than it currently is. But I haven't seen too many people talking about all these things together. It's usually just one thing or the other. But it's very clear that because of this conflict, it's fostering a kind of further closeness with the West, and also, like, if you want to call it, a kind of retreat and just solidification of the West outside of a global system. And it's causing the rest of the world, the global South, if you want to call it that, it's causing them to kind of rally around the other different big players that they could potentially bet on and work with because of their population and growing economies. So we're potentially seeing, because of this war in Ukraine, a fundamental shift, well and truly, in the established global hegemonic order. And maybe it's a good thing, maybe it's a bad thing. It's all kind of very new and unprecedented, and we don't know where everything's going to go and where things are going to land. And I don't see enough people talking about this or recognizing this for what it is, and that's what's bothering me today.